I will call the Facilities Committee of the Lammersville Unified School District Board of Education to order at 6:30 p.m. Roll call: Sharon Lempel.
Here.
Jimmy LeGrand.
Here.
Thorsten Harrison.
Present.
Andrea Gemlish.
Here.
Saint Vinod.
Here.
And Colin Clements is here as well. Item 3, receiving of public comments. Due to the social distancing requirement to prevent spread of COVID-19, public who wish to communicate at the Facilities Committee may do so via Google Form. This form is one-way communication and a response will not be provided. Are there any public comments?
There are none.
Okay. Item 4, facility use update. Section A, the facility use minutes, which are on page 2 to 15. Did any members of the committee have any comments or questions on the minutes? Okay. Sorry, that was page 2 to 3, by the way. I messed that up. The finance report on page 4. Did any members of the committee have comments on the finance report? I actually did have a question. Mr. Harrison, can you provide an update on the 2 encumbrances, one that was approved by the board in 2018 and the other one in the middle of 2020?
Yes, the 2018 approval, I believe it's 46,000 and some change there. Yep. That is the restoration of Lammersville Field, the field to the north of the school. That pays for the reconstruction of the grass and the irrigation, which we're holding off on until we do the fences and some other modernization there. That's the first one. And the second one is the baseball foul poles, which Jimmy will be giving us an update on later on in the agenda if you'd like to wait till then, or I can brief you now.
No, we can, as far as I'm concerned, we can discuss it at that time.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on the finance report?
No.
Item C, facility usage reports from page 5 to 13. Any comments on the lack of usage? Okay. Item D, denied applications. Any comments on the empty set report?
No.
Item E, reimbursements to organizations. Once again, empty set report. Any comments or questions?
No.
All right, moving right along to item 5, information and discussion items. Facility use permits, outside organization use, staff report.
So at the last meeting, we talked about this same item, and I think we did at the meeting prior to that. And I was asked to bring this back to the next meeting to talk about when and where and if we can start releasing the permits to outside organizations to use our facilities. Later on in the agenda, I'll be talking about CIF and what sports can occur when, as approved by Cbph. So the recommendation that I have from staff is to consider opening fields and the like when the tier changes for the appropriate sport to be participated in. I don't know, was that clear? I hope that was clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we, if I remember the conversation accurately, we were really just going to open it up to sports because that's going to fill it, because we're going to squeeze so much into such a short period of time. So we're not really looking at renting out facilities to other outside organizations, like in I hate to use the word normal, but a normal year of school district business.
That is what we discussed, yes. I think that we may be able, once we get some field sports going, I think we could maybe talk about outdoor field type activities for outside groups. But indoor, using gyms and MPRs, I don't know how much we're going to have to use for our sports and for our athletes once those are released.
Okay, because I was just wondering if outside organizations started applying, what set of rules we would have to follow. Is it the same as retail or like churches? Or, I mean, there's so many different sets of rules and plans out there. I don't know do you know what we would be expected to follow?
I do, and it's a part of my report later on in this meeting.
Okay, okay.
The color coding of the tiers correspond with sports, both for CIF and for the community.
But I'm thinking about other groups that I can wait until later, since it's going to come up.
Should we then combine A and C and deal with them all at once? Because I think it would be informative to know what the rules are.
Sure. Yeah, would you like me to go through my summary of the CIF sports update and Cbph guidelines?
Does anyone on the committee have an objection to moving C up with item A?
I think that makes sense.
All right, let's go ahead and see what listen to what you have to say on CIF and combine those two discussions.
Okay. So the high school staff, the principal and the VP and the athletic director have been meeting with the Central Valley League under the guidance of CIF, under the guidance of CDPH when it comes to sports. So this is what the agreement is right now. And I'm saying right now because they've been meeting and talking like every other day, and things are changing rapidly when it comes to these criteria. So when we're in the purple tier, not the deep purple, which we were in previously, we're now in the purple tier, we can start cross country, golf, swimming, tennis, and track and field. That start date for practice was February 1st, which was this last Monday. I'll go into more detail on those activities after I kind of go through the tiers here. In the red tier, we're allowed to initiate baseball and softball. In the orange tier, we're allowed to initiate football, soccer, volleyball, and water polo. In the yellow tier, we're allowed to initiate basketball, competitive cheer, and wrestling. Now I'm going to give you some details here. The final day of sports competition for the school year will be on June 12th. That's the final day anybody can do anything related to sports. All section playoffs have been canceled. Football can be played as long as it starts by February 26th and is completed by April 17th. And the reason for that, that I discovered today, is they're going to allow 2 practice weeks and 5 games. And the consultation that they had with their medical offices, their medical professionals at the CIF office, is that football players need that time off from April 17th through the summer to begin their season for the next year. So they don't feel like they can push too far into the spring and summer with the sport, because they're going to start it right up again in July and August. That's why they gave the date of April 17th. Now, a little more detail on cross country. There will be 5 dual meets, they'll start the competitions on February 16th. For boys and girls golf, play will start on February 9th, with the girls' first match on February 18th and the boys' first match on March 16th. The plan is to have 6 duels in golf. In girls' tennis, they'll compete twice per week. Matches will start February 22nd. They're planning right now, if possible, to have 10 matches, a division finals, and maybe a league finals if they can get it in. Same with boys tennis. And then swimming, they're planning to start on February 16th and have 8 dual meets. And then track and field will start 2 weeks after cross country. And the plan is to have 5 dual meets and then a divisional final.
So, I'm sorry, was that the end?
Yes, yes, sir.
So right now, all of those dates that you mentioned, my understanding is those are all still tentative.
They are, the sports that I just mentioned, those dates are agreed upon by the league right now for those sports.
So
Let me clarify. So for cross country, golf, tennis, swimming, and track and field, those start dates are agreed upon by the league currently.
so those are hard dates.
Well,
In the time of COVID-19.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that COVID, like they're still tentative, even though they've been agreed upon, because we can't guarantee it. So my question is, if we open up for outside, and I'm going back to outside, the item A, if we open it up to outside organization reservations, we won't be able to say yes or no, because we won't know if they can act, because our facilities are held to the same standards that we are held to, which means we can't rent it to them for their sport if we can't play that same sport. And if those dates change, then isn't like track and field, isn't there a possibility that if track and field, the opening, gets pushed, that we're going to try to get more concentration out of our facilities to provide them with as much as we can? So I sit there and I go, if we open it up to outside organization use, we won't be able to tell them what day they can start reserving. They just have to kind of throw darts at a dartboard. And if things don't happen the way they think we're going to happen, we will have to bump them because we're going to increase the concentration of the academic and co and extracurricular use, right?
agreed. Yes, well said.
So do we know of any outside organizations that do sports that would want to use our facilities? Is anyone gearing up to do that?
Well,
I don't know.
I think there are organizations that are trying to gear up and are breaking the Cbph rules and actually participating. I don't know that we should open our facilities to said organizations until we are allowed to by the rules. I know some travel ball is happening in baseball. I know there's some travel soccer teams that are practicing all over the valley, but they're not doing it under the guidance of the Department of Public Health.
No, we have followed the Cbph on everything else that we've done, and I think we need to remain consistent.
I agree. I think, we shouldn't open it up for rental if the public health says you shouldn't play basketball. We shouldn't rent it out so that people can play basketball.
Right. And once we start making exceptions, then it's why them and not the other group, and it would just be a mess.
What is the feelings of the rest of the committee?
I was thinking that a swim team would possibly want to use the pool. And if our swim team is using the pool, and if it's, if it's like you say, if they're allowed to use the pool, then an outside swim organization may want to use the pool as well. And that would be okay, since it's in the tier of swimming. I know that my kids didn't get to swim last year because the school districts, didn't make their pools available. So with personal interest, I would love for our pool to be open. I don't know if Tracy's school district is going to have theirs open, and I don't know if any swim teams have applied for usage of the pool, but swim pool, that stuff usually starts in April. So, I could see that kind of organization wanting to use a facility.
Yeah, I would agree with Andrea that we could be open to something like that, but it would have to be after our swim season, because our swim season is going to be so short that the kids are either almost every day going to have a meet or practice. So, but after swim season is over with the 8 dual meets that you mentioned, then if CDPH says it's okay, then we could rent to outside groups.
I have a question on the process of like what if like does one of these meetings have to happen for, you know, something to open up, or could we say our facilities are available to rent depending on, you know, the tier that is permitting sports at the time? So like, so there's that conditional item in there, because I don't think I agree with everyone. I don't think we should rent facilities out to people who are breaking the rules and not, you know, following the public health guidelines.
This committee could provide guidance to district staff to say, we think you can open for rental when, you know, once you get the go ahead, right? We could say, you know, say that,
We
right?
could also call a special meeting.
We could do that as well. And you know, and I too am okay. I'm okay with opening it up for outside once we can from a health perspective. But my concern is that right after we can open it up from a health perspective, my thought is that there's going to be a high volume of use that's internal to the district, and it's not, they can't predict now what that's going to look like. So I don't want to create or my one member of the committee opinion is I don't want to create confusion among the people saying, oh yeah, you can apply as soon as the health code, you know, as the health department says this particular sport can be played, you can apply for facilities, when the reality is there's going to be a backlog of extracurricular, I mean, of school usage for that particular sport. So is there a recommendation of like, would it be 2 to 3 weeks after, or what would that look like?
If I could jump in, once swimming is finished, you have a tier change, and then the next tier is water polo. So you may have swimming finish, you may have 2 or 3 weeks or whatever the case may be, depending on case rates, and then water polo. So for the pool example, it might be a little challenging because, you know, school's out at 3:30, and then you have that gap, that time between 3:30 and dark to have your practices, your meets, and whatnot. So, and, you know, we have the same with the fields. As soon as one group's finished, you know, we also will have marching band ready to rock and roll and start using our fields, our grass fields and our turf field to practice for marching band. So there's a variety of different things that are going to be occurring at different times depending on CDPH guidance.
So I'm just going to jump in here and give an explanation, since Andrea is still kind of new to the committee. And one of the things we had discussed was, and it's in the handbook, that our facilities are always open to school activities and practices and whatnot first, which puts a lot of limitations on the public because we have so much going on all the time, especially at the high school. So now with everything being crunched, I forgot about water polo. I've never even watched a water polo game. But I think I heard Andrea also talking about like the open swim that's usually offered in the summer. Once school is out, would we necessarily have anything going on? Because I know there are some sports that condition in the summer. Would there be anything using the pool in the summer, like in June and July?
Well, we have a 2-year agreement with CSD for pool use. And what we've done with that in the past is we get the practice schedule from the coaches and we kind of work around it.
Yeah.
Basically, the time that the CSD is asked for the pool, it does not conflict with the swimming or the water polo summer workouts.
Right. So we fill up the calendars with all the school activities first, and then we are open to outside groups, but that open swim is offered through the community services district. We have an agreement with them for them to use our facilities, but we don't run that program.
So what I'm hearing is when these facilities open, like when they're in use, there's going to be a lot of school usage, which is understandable. Like I'm aware of, you know, how much practice goes on and for sports in high school, being a high school coach and, you know, all of that. And we're concerned that, you know, people will not have there will not be a lot of availability for outside organizations. But can't we just say there's not a lot of availability to outside organizations, so squeeze yourself in where you can, and there's a potential that you could be bumped and, you know, in this environment that is a little bit unpredictable. And there could potentially be a lot of demand, but there could potentially be not much demand depending on, you know, the community's willingness to jump back into all things, you know, social. Like it's kind of you could maybe guess it might be, but it might not be. And maybe like when I look at the usage of the pool right now, it just stops at 6 p.m. and maybe that might go up based on, you know, the swim team or whatever, but like the whole entire evening is open, and an outside swim organization could use, you know, an hour or two or whatever of that pool. I mean, I obviously know there's like cleaning and all of that in between, but it seems like we could say, hey, let's give it a try and see how it goes, rather than try to say, no, I don't think it's going to work, so let's just not let it work. Like, who does the scheduling? Who actually is the scheduler? I mean, that person is going to have a hard job, but I think, you know, it's still possible.
You want to respond? You want to explain how that works, Thor?
Yeah, Jimmy, you want to tell her how our process works for reserving the facilities?
Sure. So an outside group would put in a permit to use the facility. It goes to the site administrator. They approve it or deny it. If they approve it, it gets kicked over to my office. My assistant, Sonia, checks insurance and all that kind of stuff. And once she greens lighted, it comes to me and we rubber stamp it and move it on for approval.
So putting it on the calendar is done at which level? When it's at the site?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
When is a calendar looked at?
Well,
At
the
the
site
site level?
administrator would look at the calendar and make sure they don't have any school events that conflict with the event. And if they don't, then they slide it over to my office.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to jump in here. So as a PTA president, we put in the request to my principal and the office for any meetings, and say we have a STEM program or something that we want to show off or, like, you know, present, because we may have just a month, maybe end of the year this year, to show what we did or what we're going to do, or even fundraise. We have no idea what's going to happen. So what happens is, Andrea, I talk to the office, they check the calendar and put our request first, then goes the public. So it's usually, so once we had, how I know this is, we had a conflict, we had an event for PTA and somebody had rented the basketball for a practice, and I think he has a class, and that guy showed up saying like, hey, I have a class today, and we were like, no, we have it, and we had to go and show him the calendar and everything. So he understood that first priority goes to the, you know, all the foundations and PTA, but I'm not sure if anybody's going to do anything this year, but that's how. So it goes through the site, and then we get first dibs, and the school, obviously the school teams, they get their first dibs, and then the public.
So conceptually, I'm not opposed to the idea of saying, well, organizations can like, we can open it up and let organizations ask. In a normal world, we kind of know what the schedule is for the athletics and for the PTAs and all of that. And so we kind of have an idea when we start accepting reservations, what works and what doesn't. And, is it possible to open it up for reservations? And as Andrea said, just make it clear, look, unfortunately, we don't know what the need of the athletics and various programs of the school are going to be. So if so we may have to bump you, right? And so if you're not comfortable with the idea of possibly being bumped, then the answer is going to be no. Or we tell you at the last minute, right? Like, well, nobody's using it at 2:00 today, so I guess you can have it. And if I've been on the receiving end of what the public, first they want access and then they want predictable access, right? That's the very next. They want to be able to count on it once you tell them they have access. And so I admit I'm a little timid in that regard. So is that something that is even possible to say, yeah, we'll let you reserve it, but unfortunately in these times we just can't commit until something close to the date?
I would not want to experience the political fallout from doing that over and over again.
We already have, right? I mean, we have.
Yes.
Like, I agree that could be kind of hairy and kind of stressful, but maybe with it being an option, organizations can get their act together, and it probably, is not something that may happen right away for them either. I mean, a lot of people have to like dust off everything in their organization to get the ball rolling again. But if they, see like, oh, look, there's access, maybe we can get our season up and running, a month after it would have normally started, or just kind of giving other places an opportunity to plan. Because if it's not open, nobody can plan, and then all of a sudden it's open and it's like, oh, well, we couldn't get our act together because we didn't know, we couldn't plan for it. So I don't know that. I mean, I totally acknowledge that I have no political fallout worry at all on this whatever, but it's and I don't have to deal with like the hairy logistical side of it either, but I guess that's why I'm the community member on the committee.
Well, when Sharon talked about the political fallout, she didn't mean, because Sharon, I don't think I know I have never made a single vote on the board based on what I thought whether I was going to lose votes or not. That's the farthest.
Oh, no. By political fallout, I'm talking about things like our email boxes filling up with 200 parents.
Or more
I don't
importantly,
care about votes.
More importantly, when we say something like that, it's really, and I think Sharon will agree with me, it's the repercussions on district staff when that happens. Yes. And see, the thing is, and you mentioned a key word, is plan. So then organizations can plan. And what we're actually saying is you can't plan. You can think, you can hope, or at least, we're giving you hope, but you can't plan. And what happens is then the organization, when they don't get the facility that they're looking for, then they say, well, we planned on this and we got our ducks in a row and we got the kids all ready. And we have, we got all dressed up and no
evil
place to
people,
play.
look how you are disappointing our children.
Yes, it's all about
we haven't
the
been able to
children.
plan anything for 10 months. And that's, unfortunately, we're still there. It looks like it's getting better. We'll see what happens 2 weeks after Super Bowl parties. Yeah.
Because
not being very positive about this.
8th grade graduation is right around the corner, and then PTA helps with that. That's why I had to jump in, because there's already something piling up, and I'm not sure if we're going to have anything to do, or is it going to be a drive-through. If we have the NPR, great. I mean, if there's going to be a walkover, put your gown on, take a picture, walk out. I mean, but if not, then if there's something that's going to be open, we want the first dibs for our kids. Every
Of
school, I
course.
mean,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, wouldn't, I mean, if it's open, you would get it. I mean, if it's open, you would reserve it right now. You're the PTA president. You're responsible. Like, that's, to me, is
Right, but we are also on the just think, don't plan. We're still in that bucket. So we don't know if it's going to happen or not. We don't want to put that on the kids. And like she said, it's going to be like 500 emails coming out to us. And then we would be, it's like a domino effect, right? Yeah.
If I may add my thoughts, I don't think we're going to have opportunity to rent out our interior facilities this school year. I think maybe in April or early May, we may be able to start releasing some field space at some of the K-8 schools at most. And I know that's kind of a pessimistic view, but the way that the weeks are progressing and the case rates are changing, I don't think it's going to be rapid enough for us to be able to say, yes, you can play soccer, when the weather clears up. We have to wait for CDPH. We have to be given the criteria, and yes, you can do soccer in what was it? I think it was orange. Yeah, in the orange. So if we get to orange, yay, we can play soccer at the high school level. And then we can see how that goes, and then maybe consider some other fields at other school sites. Because I'll tell you what, all these kids that want to use these fields, they're our students, they're our kids, and they need to run around and jump and play, and they need to do that stuff. So I'm thinking maybe we could get to that point.
So would you add the swimming pool to that? It's one facility, and it's and I'm specifically talking about the 2 weeks, the 2 weeks that we're talking about between swim and what we think is swim and what we think is water polo. And again, it's not a commitment. It's okay. We'll see if we can fit you in.
Yeah, I don't know how much time there will be between swim and water polo. I don't know how fast we're going to progress through the tiers.
Okay.
So I don't have positive thoughts on that because we have to split up the teams. We have to still cohort to some extent based on the coaching and the level of the team. So I don't have positive thoughts on the pool. I think maybe at the end of the year. But then at the end of the year, we're going to turn around and it's going to be potentially the CSD using the pool. So I don't know. We'd have to see. I don't know that answer.
so. Sorry. This is just sidebar. The water polo team, I think, has stopped practicing altogether because they were kind of like, we can't even throw together a season at this point. Are you aware of like the status of their team? I just know a boy on the team, and I know one of the coaches, and they were kind of like, we're not gonna be able to put anything together by the time we're actually allowed to play or touch the ball even.
So what I can tell you is that we did have teams conditioning, swimming and water polo, and they were doing the allowed conditioning. And then Deep Purple hit, and we backed off on a lot of different things that we were allowed to do. And then Deep Purple went away, and we were introduced to Purple. So moving forward, I don't know the numbers of water polo off the top of my head, but if things progress down the tiers well enough, we could have a water polo season. So I'm guessing those kids will definitely want to participate. And there might be a long line of kids that want to try out and participate that haven't done it before because they need to get out of the house.
Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly about kids needing to run around on the fields and get moving. Even my own kids, who are usually very active, have become more and more sedentary over time out of just habit. So I think that would be great.
I think like the past 10 months, we just have to take it one step at a time and see how Mother Nature and what she does with COVID-19. Is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse? You know, we're getting, it looks like we're getting a little bit better right now, but we've been here before and it turned around. So, and then we have those new variants that are kind of scary. So we just have to watch and see.
Yeah, so I think I hear a staff recommendation to, you know, as Andrea pointed out, do we say no because we don't know, or do we try? I think I hear a staff recommendation saying we could try with a limited number of fields, but not interior, not the pool, etc. So A, is that a correct interpretation of staff recommendation? And does the committee have the information it needs to, come to a consensus on that recommendation?
I think I'm supposed to answer A, and A is yes, I would agree with your assessment. It's very accurate. I think that once field sports are permitted by the County Department of Public Health and we get our sports going, I think we'll be able to assess at that time what fields we will not need moving forward. So that may be a good time to release some field use.
Okay. And how does the committee feel about that?
Yeah, I'm good.
So the only thing I have to say, I'm sorry, I know you guys, is that the only sports that are permitted to play right now are swimming, cross country, tennis, and was it golf? And was it track and field or no? Was track and field on there?
Cross country and track and field.
And football.
No football yet.
Oh, not yet.
Opening the fields wouldn't help anybody do any of those sports that are actually permitted, or maybe does that make sense?
Andrea, I don't think I'm being clear. Opening the field use when we're allowed to play sports that are allowed on fields, like soccer, baseball, softball, allowing those sports to occur when the time comes that that sport is released because the tier has been released by Cbph by the case rates.
Okay, that makes sense. I understand that.
Sorry, I wasn't clear.
Okay.
Well, I think district staff, I think I paraphrased what district staff said, and I saw several nods. So I think we have a consensus to go with that recommendation. Yes.
I would just like to say I would really like the pool to open up as well. I concur with all the other things. The pool too.
Well,
I could be outnumbered. It's fine. I respect all of your decisions.
Thank you. You gave it a run, right? Okay, so if there's no more questions, comments, concerns on item A and or B collectively, or excuse me, A and or C collectively, we can move on to item B. Item B.
Okay, I'm going to let Mr. LeGrand address the foul poll so he can kind of give you the histrionics of the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 4 months of the foul polls. Just a quick background for the other members of the committee. A year ago, this group approved the use of some funds to put up baseball netting barrier to the north of the baseball field so foul balls didn't go into the backyards of the new houses. And back then, there weren't any houses there yet. Now all the houses are there. So with that said, Jimmy, you want to give us the report on where we are on that?
So I walked the high school last Tuesday with the foreman for the contractor. We marked out where the holes are going to go. There's some workarounds with electrical box and a couple sprinkler valves and some plants that we'll have to work around. That was before the storm hit. Then we got bombarded with rain. We're walking the field tomorrow to see if we could get the equipment out there safely without getting it stuck or damaging the field or doing anything like that. There's some pretty heavy drilling equipment that's got to come out there. The holes are about 24 inches diameter. They got to go down 4-6 feet, something like that. So there's some heavy duty equipment that's coming out there. We don't want to mess up the field. And that's kind of where we're at. The weather forecast for the next week looks pretty solid. I don't see any rain in the forecast. So with any luck, and the sun was out today, hopefully it stays out over the weekend, could dry some stuff out. We could hopefully jump on it next week. But that's where we're at. All the poles are here. The rebar cages are here. They're in the parking lot at the high school. Once the poles are set, we have to do a field measurement on the netting to make sure they're exactly where they're supposed to be. And then they send us the nets, and that's where we're at. Any questions?
Project that'll never end.
Well, I think, Jimmy, I think when we started this saga, I think you mentioned that it was a little more complex than it sounded at the outset.
It's not quite as simple as you think. The poles actually didn't come with rebar cages, and because of the wind in Mountain House, we had to use the same rebar cages that we used at Cordis for those backstop poles. And I'm nervous about the wind, as everybody else is. So we've had to massage this whole thing all along, and we're still massaging it and trying to get it in. The way I looked at the baseball might start in March, maybe. We'll see how it goes, but we should have it up by then, the poles in by then.
And we've
Well,
had several conversations of, these adjustments. We want to do it right.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was just
No, we
about to
won't.
say it's more important to do it right than to get it done quickly.
We want it to look good. We're trying to keep it parallel to the sidewalk, the poles, so it looks like it's supposed to be there, not some goofy looking netting structure out there.
Afterthought.
Yeah, we can't go too far up on the hill because there's trees to avoid, so we're kind of going 5-6 feet off the sidewalk. There's just some things we have to work around. It's not quite as simple as it sounds. So that's
Any
where we're at.
Any questions, comments, concerns on item B from the committee? Okay. Item 6, future agenda topics and meeting dates. Item A,
That's seven.
I'm sorry?
That's 7. 6 is action items. There's nothing there. Am I looking at an old version of the agenda?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Six
the
is-
one that I printed out goes from information and discussion to future agenda.
You're right, it
top-
does. I must have gotten a draft last week. Okay. And that's what I printed.
So
You're right, never mind.
barring further interruption, no, I'm just kidding. Item 6, future agenda topics and meeting date. The next meeting date is May 13th. We can call a special meeting if we need to, because I know things are up in the air. And I personally would be more than willing to donate the time if things look like they're moving. And I see
Absolutely.
nods from the committee, so it sounds like if district staff feels like things are open, we can call one and be pretty nimble for the district and the kids of our district. Does anybody have any topics that they would like to add, like to discuss in future meetings besides
I
the
wanted
obvious?
to let the committee know that not last night, but the previous board meeting, the board did approve the addendum to the facilities use handbook that we proposed to them.
Oh, and thank you for running that meeting. Sharon knows I was ill that meeting.
Yeah, Colin never misses meetings unless he's really sick.
So if, and I'm sorry, did anybody have any items that they wanted to propose for future meetings? Okay. Then,
Probably an update on what's allowed from CDPH at that point.
exactly. I said besides the obvious, which is going to be that. So item 7, I guess we will adjourn the committee meeting at 7:14 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.
Okay, stay safe, everyone. Good night.